Já estamos na gravação no YouTube.
Já. All good?
Pode dar início, já começamos a gravação.
Eu só estou aguardando ver se está tudo bem com a Rachel ali, e a gente já inicia.
Que coloquei vocês três em destaque agora para o início, tá bom?
Funny thing is we can still see your presentation.
Ok. Bom, vamos aguardar então um pouquinho, né?
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. All right.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
You can't see me?
No.
Can you see me now?
No.
I'm in Zoom. I don't understand why you can't see me.
Agora ela desligou a câmera, ela estava aparecendo, mas estava travado a imagem.
Oh, now we can see you.
Aê. Podemos?
Now you can see the whole slide?
Yeah.
This has never happened to us, right?
Tecnologia é assim mesmo.
Mm-hmm. New computer. Gabriela, are you still there? No, okay. Never mind.
Tudo certinho, Cris.
Tudo? Então vamos lá. Boa tarde a todos. É um prazer estar aqui hoje, mediando a palestra da professora Rachel. Antes de iniciarmos a palestra, eu gostaria de fazer uma breve apresentação. Rachel Lotan é professora emérita na Faculdade de Educação da Universidade de Stanford. Dirigiu o Stanford Teacher Education Program, STEP, Programa de Formação de Professores de Stanford, de 1999 a 2014. Criou e dirigiu o programa de Complex Instruction da Faculdade de Educação de Stanford, uma abordagem que no Brasil é conhecida como ensino para a equidade. Seu ensino e sua pesquisa estão focados no ensino e aprendizagem em ambientes acadêmicos e linguisticamente diversos. assim como em temas ligados à formação de professores. Sua publicação recente, mais conhecida, é a obra Planejando o Trabalho em Grupo, Estratégias para a Sala de Aulas Heterogêneas. Inclusive, estou com o meu aqui. Participou da criação do PED em 2016 e continua trabalhando intensamente com a equipe do programa. Bem-vinda, Rachel. É um prazer recebê-la na Universidade de Taubaté. Fique à vontade para dar início à palestra. Obrigado, pessoal. Obrigada a presença de todos.
Can I start? Okay, all right. Thank you very much for the invitation to talk to you all. I'm very touched, very honored, and I apologize for the new computer that is giving me trouble. So let me start. The title of my presentation is Equity in Education, with a very quite large definition of education levels at all levels. And because of the word equity, I added the adjective an unwavering mandate, which means it's non-negotiable. We all have to make sure that we are working for equitable education. A brief outline for my talk today. I just want to make sure, since my experience has been both with K-12 students and in higher education, that we will consider in this presentation, and hopefully later on as well, we consider students and teachers in academically, socially, racially, culturally, and linguistically diverse classrooms as assets and resources. Then we will look at classrooms as a social system rather than a collection of individuals. And because we will be working towards equity, we're going to identify a phenomenon in classrooms, which are status problems. And finally, we will try and see if we can propose some consequential interventions of the status problems. So the first part, as I said before, the teachers and the students in diverse classrooms, heterogeneous classrooms, are resources and assets. And therefore, what we are going to focus on is their strengths. We're going to talk about not what they cannot do, but rather what they can do. So in any group, the words that we hear a lot these days is diversity, integration of that diversity. We talk a lot about segregation in schools, segregation in classrooms, and also in residential places. We want desegregation. We want true democracy for everybody to be able to live together peacefully and well. And we talk about equality a lot. Equality being everybody has the right to get the same rights and also will have the same responsibilities. And the word that we're focusing on today is actually equity, which means that in the classroom, among the learners, we need to be sure that everybody gets what they need. Another idea that I would like to focus on is the idea that, oh, wait, what happened here? Okay. That equity and excellence are two words that are connected by the word in Portuguese and in English, because they always go together. It's not or, it's not one or the other. They're both together. Equity is only authentic and veritable when all students have access to paths towards learning that lead to excellent performance and outcomes. Excellence in education, particularly, is not really excellence if it is not equitable and only select groups of society are privileged enough to achieve it. So if anybody argues with you and says, oh, if we make classrooms equitable, we're watering down the curriculum, please argue with them and tell them they are not correct. So what we are going to then talk about is, and I hope that you might know these dolls. They are the Russian dolls. And the point that I want to make is that how very little and young people learn, the principles for that learning are very similar to how adults learn. So we are making generalization that way. And what I'd like to say is that in these classrooms that we are talking about, the students can be of all ages. They show a range of diverse socioeconomic, racial, ethnic, religious, and demographic categories. They come from different societal, cultural, linguistic, and interactional backgrounds. They interact in different ways. They also, particularly in schools, in K-12 schools, their previous academic experience and academic achievement is also of a wide range. And in many countries, and I know Brazil also has immigrants, the oral and written proficiency in the language of instruction is a big issue for many of these learners. And also, what we need to remember, though, that with all this, diversity is an asset. And there is documented evidence of the benefits of diversity, both socioeconomic and racial. There is definitely intellectual growth by getting other people to know personally. There is absolute documentation of academic achievement in heterogeneous environments. There is also a development of social emotional competence. And finally, if done right, also leadership development. So as I said before, when we start teaching as teachers, rather than complaining about what these students cannot do, let's try and find out what they can do and create and build the equitable classrooms. But that is possible only if and when learning environments are equitable. To do that, I suggest a different way of looking at classrooms. I suggest that we look at classrooms rather than a collection of, 30, 40 students and one teacher, to look at it not as a collection, but as a system. And as you know, in a system, the different parts of the system interact and there are consequences for that interaction. And I also suggest that looking that way, it will have us look differently at how teaching and learning occur. So, what are some of the views of teaching and learning? There are two different theories that I'm going to talk about today. One kind of teaching and learning occurs in a setting like I'm sure you experienced many times, not only in the classroom, but also in higher education, where the achievements, the success and failure, the behavior of the learners are explained by individual personal characteristics and demographic differences. In this case, the research usually takes into account the product, looks at what's the final achievement that the students show from post-test, from pre-test to post-test, okay? And looks at their demographical background. Not so much in the other view of learning and teaching. In this view of teaching and learning, like we see them here, the theory and the explanation focus on classrooms as a system. And here, rather than the demographic background, not that we're not taking into account, but the demographic background is, in addition to it, also, we look at the interactions, the level of authority and how power is used in the classroom. We also use notions like equity, status, prestige, task structure, participant structure. Okay. Most importantly, we look at who interacts with whom and why. Okay. And I just want you to think for maybe a moment about your own interactions in groups. Are you someone who can participate often or not? Of course, it depends on the situation. It depends who you are. And why are we focusing on the interaction? We focus on the interaction because interaction and rates of interaction and the differences between those interactions matter consequentially. They matter a lot. And I'll show you in a minute how and why they matter. But first, let's make sure that we understand, and this is, there are some references in case you want to look them up. Much of this research I had been involved in, first as a graduate student and then as part of an academic who worked on this kind of research. But first of all, let's look at how do we define learning? Okay, how do we define learning? Oh, okay. All right. I argue, and not only I, lots of people argue, that learning is a dynamic process and is influenced by the context in which it takes place. Learning is a dynamic system of social activity because there is a lot of cognitive growth that happens because of social interaction, as Vygotsky has taught us. Social interaction in which children interact with their more advanced peers or adults and work jointly on solving problems. All learning then is a social process shaped by and infused with a system of meaning that brings the world of home and school. Okay. And this is a quote from an important volume that is called How People Learn, Learners, Contexts, and Cultures. And actually, it can be downloaded for free in case you're interested. It's a very big volume, and it has a very, very good way of talking about learning. So then, here you can see that in all these different kinds of photographs of people of different ages in different kinds of activities, that learning is definitely a social activity. Not only that, but learners interact not only with each other, they also interact with materials, with the environment. All of these photos show learning. Yes, there is a little kid here who sits and reads his book all by himself, which I'm sure he enjoys a lot. But here, it's learning to play a musical instrument. Here, it is talking around computers. Here, they play a game, maybe. But they all learn. And for me, then, what is interesting, and the research that is interesting to me, is to open the black box of the classroom, open the black box of our learning activities.